Welcome back everyone to Angela's Craft Room. Today I'd like to show you how I made this Christmas card. Now with this Christmas card I've done some masking, some sponging, some tearing along the bottom here. So you might not like to tear, but I just wanted to share how I do it. And then I've used Lovely as a Tree stamp set to get this image here. And then I've continued it over inside, just stamping it across the bottom there, and you've still got plenty of room there to write your message. But I'd just like to show you those few techniques that I've used to get this card today. So we'll start off. So we'll start with the stamping, no, actually the tearing. So to start with, we need a piece of Whisper White that is 4 7/8 of an inch by 3 5/8 of an inch. Right, now along the long side we're going to start tearing that bottom piece. So what I do is hold it there and just don't rip it, you know, real quickly. Just take your time, and I just, you know, I just support it with my finger underneath, and then even if you want to turn it, I want it higher this side because that is where the sentiment's going to go. So we don't get rid of that piece we've torn off. So I've torn off, and then you've left with this nice edge that you can actually see the inside fibres because the cardstock has several layers. Okay, so we're going to, first off, what we're going to do is we're going to stamp our trees. So I'm just using basic black, and as mentioned, the stamp set I'm using is Lovely as a Tree. I absolutely love this stamp set. I think it's been Stampin' Up have had this set for about 10 years. I've been with Stampin' Up for 2 years, and I just use it all year round. It can be used for so many occasions, and then at Christmas, just by adding a sentiment or some glitter, it becomes a Christmas card. It is just the most versatile stamp set that I have. And I have quite a few, I can tell you. So I've already got on a block, here we go, is that it comes in one big stamp, all those trees. And as always, I like to take my stamp pad to my stamp. That way I can see that I'm getting into all those lovely impressions that the artist has made. Another tip is when there is so many deep just so much detail on the stamp, you can even just put your stamp and just sort of wriggle it like that, and it gets into all the grooves. That's what I'm trying to explain, to get into all the grooves. So then I'm just going to, my first stamp on here, I'm just going to go quite low to the bottom of the tear, even a little bit off, and I'm just going to do it about in the center. And then I want to really give it a good pressure because I just want a really crisp image. You could use Memento ink or archival ink, but I find the basic black in the Stampin' Up range very good. So that's the first one, And then what I'm going to do is I've still got a little bit of ink on there, so I'm just going to go in between those trees and just up a little bit, and this is what they call second stamping, or when you stamp off and then you put, and it's just going to give an image that there's trees in the background. So I'm just stamping up my ink pad again. Not being so fussy this time now that I've got the main, because I've got the main one down there, and I'm just going to mainly, I just want to get a really good image there and a really good crisp image on the other side. Like that. And then if you wanted to, we could just down the bottom or even at the top, just so it just shows a little bit of stamp. Just shows, and it just gives you the impression that, sorry, my camcorder moved. It just gives you that impression that there's trees behind the full strength trees that we stamped. Okay, so I'll just clean off my stamp. Okay, this is where I am about to put on my disposable gloves, because I'm going to be sponging quite a lot. I should have put them on before I came on, but I only have them on just while I'm sponging. Because then I'm not going to transfer any ink onto. So I'm just going to close that basic black. Now I'm just going to bring in the soft sky, and just this is a sponge from Stamping Up. They come in quite a large sponge, and I just cut them in quarters. So I'm just going to add some colour just lightly, and because I know that this ink pad isn't that juicy, I didn't want to re-ink it before I'd sponged showing you this. And it does, you know, if you get, we're going to be adding a darker colour, so I'm not really worried too much that there's a bit of blotchiness there, because you are going to add an awful lot of ink. The one I did last night, it was still wet when I went to bed, and it's perfectly dry this morning, but by adding a lot of this ink, you do need to most probably leave it overnight. It's most probably not one that you would make a lot of for Christmas, because they do take a little while to make, and I'm giving you the really quick version today. So just want to come down into those trees, because along the bottom we are going to be putting some Night of Navy, and up the sides like that. So just see if I can rub that little bit of blotchiness out a bit. I must have just had a little bit too much ink on there, and then when I haven't got that much, I just go down into the trees. Now I want to make a mask for my moon, so I'm just going to take a couple of, it's a sticky end, a couple of sticky notes and my 1 1/4 inch punch, and where it's sticky at the top of the post-it note, I'm just going to punch out a circle, and you just place that where you want your moon. So I'm just going to go on the post-it note, do little circular motions and come off. That way you're not going to lift the post-it note on the edge where you don't have any sticky on your post-it note. I know some people put a little bit of snail underneath, but then you've got to try and remove the snail, so I choose to do it this way. Then I'm going to bring in the Night of Navy. And there's not much on there. So now with the Night of Navy, it's a lot stronger colour, so I would start on my grid paper and just bring it over. And just bring it down the sides. This is the part of the card that does take most of your time. And just sponge it out. So I'm just going to go all the way round. I want to do the top. But you still want to keep that soft sky there, and I will come back in with the soft sky. I know some people do it a lot different than I do, that this is just the way I like to sponge. I like to come off of my grid paper and bring it on, and that way you're not going to get any blotchy like I did on the other side, but it seems to have panned out well. So then across the bottom here, where you've done your tear, you want to have quite a strong colour going across there, because you need to, where you've torn your cardstock and you've got exposed fibres, all those need to be coloured with, in this instance, quite a dark colour. It's better. So you can see, just move that and I'll come up further. So I'm just going, just where I've torn it across the bottom, I just really want it to be quite dark on that bottom. But I'm not going up into the trees very much. I have put a little bit at the bottom of the trees, but it's mainly across that bottom. But it's not a hard card. It's not a hard card to make, but people seem to like it. So I'm just going to lift it up and have a look. So I'm quite happy with that, but I'll just put a little bit. So I'm not stamping off when I'm adding this darker colour either. Like, I'm not going onto the grid paper, I'm going straight onto the tear. Because when you put it on the lighter colour, when we glue this to the lighter colour of card, this bottom part is going to really be accentuated, so you really want it to be dark. So I think I'll stop there, and then I'll just stamp this off. I could use another sponge, but I just rub it off. My camcorder's not liking me sponging because I'm moving the table quite a bit. So then I'm just going to go back into this soft sky. Just have to make sure that's better, that I don't have any more Night of Navy on there. So I'm just going to start from the edge because this part in here is still very white, and we want to have the whole thing sponged. You could leave a little bit of it white if you wanted to. So at this point I'll just take off that mask so you can see that part of the moon has the soft sky in it, and I think I'll just leave the top of the moon white. And this is what takes up most of the time with the tutorial, is the sponging, but I just really like to show you how I do sponge. Most people that watch my tutorials all the time know that I do take quite a bit of time with my sponging. You can always fast forward the tutorial, but and it doesn't matter if you go over the Night of Navy. Or even if you go a little bit over to the moon. I just didn't want to ink up this pad before I sponged because it would have just been too inky. So I'm just working some more soft sky into there, and it's just the fact that it's not a real inky ink pad that I'm able to go straight onto my paper rather than coming from the grid paper over. I said but I've decided to go over the moon just to smooth out that bottom part of it. Just bring a little bit more into the trees. So we won't go any more because just got to know when to stop. It's a technique that I love doing. Okay, so we can take off our gloves now. Get rid of the sponges, and I'll just turn that over so you can see how effective that does bring it in. So then what you need then is a piece of soft sky, and it's 4 7/8 by 3 5/8, exactly the same size as the Whisper White, but we're not tearing it. So then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to place that so it's flush at the top, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment this side. Now, what I used for my sentiment was from the Star of Light Christmas stamp set. And I bet you I can't find the sentiment I want. There we go, Merry Christmas. So let's grab my block. Sticks on very nicely. So then I've got the Knight of Navy handy, so I'll just take my ink pad. Because it's a little stamp, I'm just tapping it also very lightly. Because you don't want to transfer any ink onto your card stock that you don't want. So hopefully I will get it straight. Lovely, it's nice and straight. Then I'm just going to, I normally would use multi-purpose liquid glue. Actually, I might, because it does give you that little bit of time to move it if it's not quite straight. If I can just get it started. Oh, look at that. Normally it comes straight out because I have it stored in this position, so it tweezers. Always happens when you're on camera, doesn't it? So I'll just, there we go, got it going. So you don't really need that much, but where I like to get it right down on that tear, and I can spread that out with a cotton bud before I put it on. So I just want to mainly try and get as close to the edge as I possibly can. Like that. And where it's a, if you get a like a big daub, just use a cotton bud and spread it out. Those that watch my tutorials know I love my cotton buds. So I just want it to be right onto that tear, but I don't want it oozing out onto the card. Okay, so then I'm going to bring in my soft sky, and I'm just going to line it up on any grid line just so I know that it's straight. And then I'm just going to put the top piece down first, and I hope my head's not in the way. Now I'm just going to quickly pick that up, so it gives me those few minutes just to move it up so I can't see the soft sky underneath. And I think that's pretty good. So then I'm just going to turn it over, don't have ink on my hands, and just very gently, because I don't want it to move, and this will help it adhere to the soft sky. And so that's like that, and you can see the Merry Christmas. Got a little bit of a hair there that I don't like. There we go. So now what you need a piece of, just put that to the side so that sentiment can dry for a minute. Now you need a piece of Night of Navy, or whatever colour cardstock you're using, and it's 11 inches long by 4 1/8 wide, and then I've scored it at 5.5. And then I'm just going to fold that and burnish it with my bone folder. Now you need a piece of Whisper White also for the inside of your card, which measures 5 inches by 4 inches. And I'm just going to bring back the lovely big stamp from Lovely as a Tree. And seeing I've got the blue out, the Night of Navy blue, I'm just going to use that. Now it doesn't have to be as bright inside. So you could stamp it off first, but I'm choosing not to. And I'm not going to re-ink that or anything, because that's fine for just inside your card. And you can see by stamping the when we ink it up, we stamp it in the middle, and then I've just, without re-inking, I've stamped it again, and it gives it that lighter shade in the other trees, which gives you the illusion that you've got trees behind trees. So it's looking a bit more like a forest. So then I'm just going to use my snail to adhere that inside the card. and just close it. This way you're not smudging your ink, and then you've got your nice inside there all ready to write on. Now, as you can see, this is going to be quite a lot smaller than the front of the card. So what I've done using the Fancy Frost DSP, I've cut a piece that is 5 1/8 of an inch by 4 inches. So you could have any designer series or another colour of cardstock, whatever you prefer. Then I'm just going to add, with this Fancy Frost, it's just that it's quite thick and it does have some impressions on it. It's a beautiful card because it literally comes embossed for you, so it makes your job a lot easier. So I'm just trying to pop that down as equally as I can. And then once again, I'm going to just like that. So you've got that. Then we just need to pop that onto there. So I would myself in this instance use snail because the sponging is still it's still wet, like it's not going to smudge or anything, but it's quite wet. And it, as I said, the one I did last night, it actually took me overnight for it to dry. But you just got to be careful because once you put it down, you can't take it off. So I'm just putting the top down, having a look around my sides. I mean, you're not going to get it exact, but people are going to be so appreciative that you've gone to the trouble to make them a handmade card. And then we're just going to sponge that, press that down, and it's quite an effective card, I think. And then just as a finishing touch, I'm just going to put a couple of rhinestones on the other side. You don't have to, that's just me. So I'll just turn it this way. I'll just put my first dot of glue there and grab my tweezers, and hopefully I have a really bad reputation for my rhinestones ending up on the other side of the table. And this fine tip glue pen, it's a very strong glue, but you hardly need any of it. See, like that one. Always happens to me. Just one more. And as you can see, you hardly need any of that fine tip glue, and it's just such a really good strong glue. It's really good under the Stampin' Up sequences as well. If you're trying to glue sequins to your cards, use the fine tip glue. Now if you're after any of these products from Stampin' Up, I will leave the link to my store at the bottom. Or if you don't have a Stampin' Up demonstrator looking after you and you're interested in receiving you're in Australia, I'm more than happy to send you a catalogue. You'll just have to pop me an email and I'm more than happy to do that. if you are looking for a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator to look after you. So that's the card finished. Pretty much, not much change really. Sponging is a little bit different, but I really liked this card when I made it, so I just wanted to share it with you. And I'd just like to really thank you for spending part of your day with me today, and I really look forward to seeing you in my next tutorial. Happy crafting!